everyone knows that when flying tiny whoops around a race course, the fastest way around that track is in angle mode. Or is it? I did a video on this about 4 years ago where I was flying all my races in acro mode and people started beating me on the track. I didn't like it. They told me it's because I was flying acro mode and I should be flying angle mode. I switched to angle mode and my times got way better. From then on, I performed way better at races. I won my fair share of tiny whoop races. I was pretty much a regular on the podium. But that was back 4 years ago. That was 2017, 2018, 2019, I forget. This is not your granddaddy's whoop races anymore. These quads have gotten a lot more capable. They've gotten a lot faster. We have brushless motors now. Back then we only had the brushed motors. And you're seeing a great increase in the number of pilots that are flying in acro mode these days. Most famously is probably T-Dog. So if you've seen any of his footage, like from the latest Whooptopia race, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Now I'll tell you, even then I mentioned, on certain tracks, I expect acro to be faster than angle mode. However, it really depends on the pilot, right? So like very, very skilled whoop pilots, I think of Neon FPV, he's always flown in acro mode. I think Hyper's always flown in acro mode. Orange stuff, I think, is always flown in acro mode. It's always been possible, but for the vast majority of tiny whoop racers, angle mode has seemed to be that ticket to great results. I think Rab FPV is a great example of someone who's putting in just awesome times doing angle mode flying. He's showing really what these tiny whoops can do when flying into angle mode. Typically, you've seen Ayyykayyy. He's a well-known whoop pilot. He's always flown in angle mode. But I think last year when he lost Whooptopia to T-Dog, he really dedicated himself to flying in acro and see if he could push himself to fly faster. So now, fast forward to today, I want to bring myself back to 2023 with brand new whoops and see if they still hold true that it's better to fly in angle mode versus acro mode. So today for the testing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test 2 different tiny whoop quads, and I'm going to fly a whole bunch of packs through this course I have set up downstairs. I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to fly 2 different quads because I want to see, you know, in general, is it better to be angle mode and acro mode, but also does it depend on what quad you're flying. So these are the 2 quads I'm going to be flying. First up, we have the Meteor65, the 2022 edition, which is the larger size props. These are 35mm props, flying still in a 65mm frame. I really, really like this. I just got this last week. It's been really responsive, very fast around the course. I love flying this thing. Similarly, I got this one. This will be our slow, heavy quad. As an example of, what about if I'm flying a slower, heavier quad? Does it still make sense to fly in angle mode, or does that make it change to where acro is actually the better? So this one here is the Mobula6 HDZero edition. As is, it's not actually the stock one. I will tell you that the stock frame with the Mobula6 HDZero, I broke that I think on my second crash. I hit a PVC post, the thing shattered, it wouldn't fly properly anymore. I had to swap it out to the Meteor65 frame. Things have been way, way better. Also, I had to change out the pigtail to a BT2 pigtail. I also changed the ESC firmware to get a little bit of better flight performance. Now, as this thing is built, it weighs in at a whopping 27.5, 28 grams. This is a really heavy, pretty slow tiny whoop. And how will that do, and how will this do flying around the course? We're going to put it to the test. All right, so how are we going to determine what the best approach is, angle or acro mode? In order to do this, I'm going to run a whole ton of test packs on my track. I'm a big believer that the more data you have to analyze, the more we can learn from it, and the better conclusion we can form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a simulated race. I'm going to run 10 rounds of qualifying to get my fastest 3 consecutive laps. After that, I'm going to run 10 rounds of the first to 4 laps. So the idea is if it matches kind of on a race day where we do qualifying going into brackets, the mindset shifts. If you're trying to be the first across the finish line, you might be a little bit more conservative in how you fly. And I want to try to stimulate that race. Because a big part of racing is not just how fast you are around the track, but how consistent you are and how little you crash. A race finished very often can turn out to be a race won. So I'm trying to capture that, and I'm trying to put myself in the mindset for both that qualifying and racing format. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start out with the HDZero quad. I'm going to run this thing in angle mode. I'm going to do 10 rounds of qualifying. After that, I'm going to do 10 rounds of race to 4 laps. Once I get used to that, I'm going to take about 5 batteries running this thing in acro mode, get used to it, and then do 10 rounds of qualifying, 10 rounds of racing. After that's all done, I'm going to do the same thing all again with my Meteor65. This quad is significantly faster than the HDZero quad. And I want to know, with whatever results I get here, are they going to translate to the faster quad? Or when things get faster, will I really need that angle mode consistency to keep it around the track? Let's go check out that track downstairs. It's a doozy. Let's go check it out. All right, so this is my test track I'm gonna be running down here. As you can probably tell, I'm in my basement at my house, and things are pretty tight. It's a pretty good sized basement, but still there's a lot of stuff down here, and I had to make the best use of my space I had. One thing I wanted to do with my test track is I wanted something where I could put a lot of gates, a lot of technicality, and still have long flight time. So I was looking to have something where maybe it was a 20 second, 18, 25 seconds, somewhere in that range of lap times. In general, the longer the lap times, I feel like, again, the better the data. Now you can see here what I have is my custom LED gates. I built all these things out of PEX tubing, PVC tubing, custom 3D printed connectors, LED strips. I made my own power cables, ran it all throughout the basement. This is how I actually used to run my tiny whoop races here in Detroit. Now, as you can tell, this course is really, really tight. I put a lot of gates. I'm not even gonna count all the gates I put in here. But what I was looking to do is really stress out that quad and make it really hard to fly. So hopefully, if there is a problem with a very technical course when I go to a race, I'll be comfortable flying with it. And this will be a good representation of something that's harder to fly. Is it still better in acro? Is it still better in angle? Let's give it a test. All right, so this is my starting gate here. You can see that I have a lap RF set up to time my laps. Make sure I get the best data possible. I'm gonna fly through this gate, and I got all sorts of gates come up afterwards. We're gonna have to do a nice hard turn here through the red gate and then the green gate. We're then gonna go through and do a split S maneuver. A split S is something that I find really fascinating because it's something I take totally different if I'm flying in angle mode or acro mode. So I'm really curious how that works. From there, I'm gonna make a quick turn back here. I'm gonna do a nice little chicane section through these gates, do a split S again in the backside, come through the tops, quick turnaround. Come out here to this section and finally fly up to that top gate and do the top section up here all the way across the basement. Do a quick hairpin turn into another split S up here, all the way back across the basement here. Do a ladder down, hard left turn, back to that start gate. All right, so that's quite the track. I think it's a lot of gates in a very small amount of space. I think it has a good mix of really technical flying as well as some faster sections. The sections across the whole basement along the top, that really is gonna make me push the quad and try to go fast. The ascent up and this descent down is gonna make sure that I'm stretching the quads as well. And again, as long as I'm doing 40 plus batteries of testing on this thing, it should give us nice representation of data. So that's gonna take me a while. So without further ado, let's get down to it and let's see which one wins.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with it who lying for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bugging. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build them a fortune. I'm flipping the ride. I can't be mixy when iffy the vibe. And 40 on 50 is really the time. Why are you all on my phone like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I don't know if you thinking I'm blind. Cross on my crosses and dot on my eyes. Done with your efforts, I'm dealing with pressures. I know it's a lesson, that's word of the wise. Dubbing the mixes, I'm mixing. I know I've been missing, I needed some personal time. All the pictures, dimensions, I don't with your digits. I mean it, I'm staying inside. Cause they got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it.
All right, guys, the results are in. I just put in, I think, about 7 hours of flying, another couple hours of data analysis, but we have the results, and I did not expect to find what I got here. So one great thing is, to me, the big thing that stood out was the results were conclusive. If you watch that footage, that was the exact order they did all of my testing in. So I started with HDZero, I did angle mode, then acro mode, and then I switched over to the Meteor. I did acro and then angle. There's a couple reasons why I did that. One, I didn't want to give one an unfair advantage over the other. So I figured if I flew angle mode first and then acro, I'd have more time on the track. I'd get more used to it. I might have a little bit of advantage doing acro. But then if I flipped it around when I did the Meteor65, I do the acro first and then have the Meteor on angle and try to beat it with angle. So I figured that was the most fair way to do it. And like I said, I put in 20 packs each between the qualifying and the race laps. So I feel like I gave everything as fair of a shot as I could. And hopefully from watching the footage, you can tell I was really pushing. I was trying to set a new best every time I could. And hopefully that came through in the footage. The other thing that really stood out to me was just how well I did flying HDZero. That quad is a beast. I mean, it is super, super heavy, and I know you can tell it doesn't look as fast as the others, but I think a little bit of that extra weight made it so I wasn't blowing out certain turns quite as much, and the lap times are actually really, really close. The thing that really shocked me the most, if you look at these results here, if I'm looking at the top 3 consecutive qualifying, I'm actually within 0.1 seconds of my qualifying time in the Meteor65 as I am with the HDZero, and I just didn't expect that. So going through my best top qualifying times, Meteor65 Acro 61.0, HDZero Acro 61.1. Meteor65 Angle was in third place, 62.1, and then HDZero Angle coming in at 64.1. So another thing that really stood out is there was a big difference between angle mode and acro mode when flying with HDZero. I think part of that was you would notice kind of when I was flying, I'd have a little bit of stutters trying to catch myself. It's such a heavy quad trying to correct that momentum. When I was flying in acro mode, I feel like the way I could angle the quad was a little bit better for that, and it didn't wash out quite as much. It didn't have to try to keep itself level quite as much, and somehow maybe that was helping me out. I don't know. If you look at these charts here, the way I'm showing it, I wanted to show kind of the 25 to 75%, so the 25th percentile, the 75th percentile, because I feel like that kind of removes some of the outliers. Like if I had one really lucky run, you'd see it as the best, and if I had really one unlucky run, you see that as the worst. But I feel like if you look at the 25 to 75%, that's really the most representative of how I was doing. And looking at the qualifying results here, you can see that I just kept getting better as far as HDZero Angle was clearly the slowest. HDZero Acro was kind of next. You can see that the 25 is really not as good as the 25 of the Meteor65 Angle. But again, that fastest time is actually better with HDZero Acro. That's the one that blew me away more than anything else. Moving on, Meteor65 Angle, looking pretty good. The top 25% is pretty fast. But man, when you get to that acro mode flying on the Meteor65 with that additional capabilities of that quad, it just stole the show to me. It was clearly the way I was fastest around the track. The fastest lap maybe wasn't that much of a difference, but man, I was able to be more consistent, which I really did not expect. I was able to fly much smoother through the track, which again, I didn't expect either. Moving on to the race times in that chart, you can see it's really more of the same. Again, I really feel like focusing on the 25% to the 75th percentile is the most important thing to look at. And again, what really stands out to me is the HDZero Angle is really the outlier. That is clearly the one I'm the slowest with. Moving on, you get the HDZero Acro, then the Meteor65 Angle, then the Meteor65 Acro is just clearly the fastest, 25 to 75%. I think they probably showed in the footage. I don't know. You can see that I was hitting 100% throttle when I was flying the Meteor65 Angle, so I was trying to push it. I just couldn't match it. All right, so I also want to look at the lap times overall, and this really changes things up. I think part of this may be that the Meteor65 is a faster quad than the HDZero quad, but the other part is that I did the HDZero flying first. So I think that some of the slower times may be because I wasn't as familiar with the track versus when you look at the Meteor65. Now, one thing that did kind of catch my eye here is when just looking at the qualifying laps, the 75th percentile of my angle mode flying was actually better than the 75th percentile of my acro mode flying. So I didn't quite expect that based on just the total top 3 times and the way that worked out. But that does say that you know, maybe I'm not totally crazy, and that angle mode is still a little bit more consistent overall on laps. If I look at all the laps combined, so if I include both the qualifying laps and the racing laps, again, it's really more of the same. But that 25th percentile between HDZero Acro and Meteor65 angle, it's pretty much the same. And also, it's worth noting that my fastest lap of the day with the HDZero Acro mode was actually faster than my fastest lap of the day with the Meteor65 angle. Again, overall fastest lap was the Meteor65 Acro, but I just think it's mind-blowing that with something so heavy and quote-unquote slow like the Mobula6 HDZero, that it could actually fly laps just as fast as I could fly in angle mode with the Meteor65. So there you go, guys. I don't know, did that surprise you at all? I don't think that my results are necessarily true for every single pilot, but I do think things are changing where Acro mode is making more and more sense for more and more tiny whoop pilots. Acro mode is here to stay. We've seen a number of pilots switch over. I think at this point I'm going to switch over. Again, this flight here that I did was in my very tight quarters. If things opened up, like if you look back at the United States Air Force Museum race I did 3 years ago, that was a wide open track. That really would have excelled at Acro mode in my opinion. So I'm planning to go to that race again, my first whoop race since that whoop race, and I plan on flying Acro mode. I think that's giving me my best chance to do well. And yeah, we'll just see what happens. So anyway, those are my results. Acro mode is actually the winner here. Things have changed a lot in a few years. And it's great too because I actually find Acro mode to be more fun. So I'm going to be loving my Acro mode. I'm going to keep flying that. And yeah, let me know what you guys thought here. Did these results surprise you? Did you already know what was going to happen? I'd love to hear from you. And keep hitting that subscribe button to catch more videos like this in the future. I plan to do quite a few more Boop videos in the near future. So keep posted for that. And as always, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
The money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something. That's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. A phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with it who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your place.